Friends, welcome to Adobe Spotlight. This is such a special segment with my friend Justin. I'm so excited to be here. I think we're going to have a lot of fun together. Justin, welcome. This is your Spotlight. How do you feel?
I'm excited. I can't wait. I got a good friend in you, Phil, kicking us off with this. So, it couldn't be better. Couldn't be a better Monday, actually. Yeah.
I feel like I need to tell our audience that you are the person that I call when I have questions about short form content, about how do I even begin to create a TikTok that's going to go viral. You are certainly the expert in this topic and so many things. So you are an entrepreneur, you're a seasoned content creator. That's probably how I describe you to the average person. But why don't you give us a little peek into your world, a little intro into who Justin is?
No, I appreciate you. A little bit about Justin. Started creating content when I was in college. The whole purpose was to try to find a job and internship. Did that whole thing, started on LinkedIn out of all platforms, and then the pandemic hit. During the pandemic, really wanted to find a way to give back to kind of like the younger version of myself, but I didn't want to charge them money, right? I knew I would never buy a course. No shame in the course world. I know, Phil, you got a few. I love your courses, but for me, I knew as a college kid, I just would never buy something like that. And so I wanted to find a way to give all that information that I learned in college as well as in like my own content journey for free. And so that's when I started Declassified Media. 2020 has been around almost or a little over 4 years now, which is crazy to say, but it's allowed us to do some amazing things. And now we're actually like working in higher ed and like making an impact in the career world, in the traditional career world. So it's been amazing to see it all come together.
Have you stopped to actually like register that? I mean, you're hearing it out loud because you're saying it to me and you're saying it to our friends in the chat. By the way, hello, friends in the chat. We're going to visit with you in a moment. But like traditionally, Justin, for you to be in a position where you're influencing or teaching people in higher ed or in, university, college and such. I say university because I'm Canadian. I had to learn to say college when I moved to the US. College means everything. But like you normally have to have a master's degree, you have to have PhD, right? And so you kind of rejected that, didn't you?
Yeah, like when I was in college, my parents, again, very traditional, like immigrant path, they wanted me to be a doctor. And that was the initial kind of journey that I was going to go down, but ultimately decided that business was a route for me. And I really wanted to, again, give back to the younger version of me. Both my parents, Vietnamese refugees, didn't have much information to share when it came to like how to find jobs in the traditional American sense. And so I learned all that on my own. And when I looked at how could I impact people um, or impact students in the career world, there was really like two paths. One was go get your master's degree or your PhD. And so that meant another 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of school, which I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to be for me. And then on top of that, again, pay isn't everything, but higher ed, unfortunately, and teachers, unfortunately, around the US don't get paid a ton of money either. And so the other route for me was okay, let me go try and make an impact. The social media thing is starting to pop off. If I get enough followers, if I get a big enough voice, they're going to have to listen to me, right? Because if I have the attention of all the Gen Z students, all the now Gen Alpha students that are coming up into high school and college, that means I've got all the insights that all these universities want. And so that shift is starting to happen. I'm starting to see it, especially with the universities that have a more innovative person on whether it's their career side, their marketing side, whichever team we end up working with. But it's been fascinating to see the shift, especially the past like 2 or 3 years since COVID was hit or has hit us,
Mm.
that people are starting to look more online for things like this.
One of the things that I admire about you is not just your good looks, but it's also your ability to stay super calm and cooler than a cucumber as an entrepreneur and really just like laser focused on projects. You know what I mean? Like you really are. I mean,
I
you even
appreciate
if you
that.
go against the grain on something, you you trust yourself, you trust yourself to follow that course. Would you say that that's true?
I would say ignorance is bliss, so to say, right? Like I would never tell anyone to go and try to impact the higher ed world as a young person, so to say. Again, I'm turning 28 this year. And so I feel old in the creator world, but I am still super young in the higher ed world. And for me, I think a lot of that ignorance is bliss comes from just believing that things will work out for me. I don't know where that confidence really comes from. Maybe it's something that my parents instilled with me. Maybe it was something I was born with. I'm not necessarily sure. But every time someone has asked me a question like this, like, oh, like what keeps you going? Like, why do you keep working towards this higher ed thing? Like you've been at it for, I was looking at my LinkedIn content, trying to find the first ever post on LinkedIn. And the farthest I could get is 6 years before the server just crashes every single time. Um, and so like what has caused me to stick in this into this thing for the past 6 7 years, it's honestly I feel just confidence that it will work its way out. And when you're
Mm.
working towards something that you fully believe in and it's towards something that is going to impact a lot of people, like we're reaching millions of students every single month right now, something's gonna break. And I think that point in time for us was about like a year or two ago when school started hitting us up and all that hard work of like getting the views, and we'll talk about this later, like going to the editing, the retention, and all that stuff, all this nitty gritty stuff, that schools are actually starting to pay attention to it because they're starting to realize how important a social strategy is, not just to educate their students, but to engage their student body while they're on campus.
Yeah, that's super cool. It's super cool to listen to you talk about that. Friends in the chat, I want to say hello to you. Hey, Wade, thank you. He just
So
posted a
Wade,
great little link. Yeah, a link to declassified college. We're going to talk about declassified media in a second. Actually, we're going to talk about a few things that you brought up. You brought up LinkedIn. You brought up editing for retention. If I had to say that there was going to be kind of a theme of what we'll talk about for the next hour, I would say it is that. Friends, you will leave this hour, whether you're with us live or you're watching the replay, you're going to feel confident. You're going to feel as confident as Justin when it comes to creating short form content that, it's incredible the difference of editing. It's incredible just a little bit of advice, on how to create for the kinds of content that works nowadays. Can we go back to LinkedIn though? You and I actually met on LinkedIn. This is funny. A dear friend, Rob Humphreys, was like, Phil, you really need to meet this guy, Justin. And so I had followed you on LinkedIn. I was like, this guy is much fancier than me. And then I saw you in real life in the flesh at Adobe Max. And I was like, I think I know who you are. And we had a chat. And you've always just been very accessible. And you've been, I mean, I think you built a nice little brand for yourself as well on LinkedIn, is where it started, wasn't it?
yeah, no, it all started on LinkedIn, and shout out to Adobe for like again bringing everything full circle, right? First got to meet you at Max, now we're hosting a spotlight, or you're hosting a spotlight for me. This is amazing. Maybe we'll do it vice versa in the future. But I'm not sure if you guys can see my screen really quick, but
Oh,
the
we can. That is a
this
baby,
is
Justin.
this is baby Justin. And so this post is from 6 years ago. I like maybe earlier today, like an hour or two ago, I was scrolling on LinkedIn across the hundreds of posts that I unfortunately have put out there on LinkedIn, trying to get to the bottom, and it kept on crashing after 6 years. So I'm pretty sure there's like a 7 or 8 year post out there. But this was the post that I could get to before things were crashing. And so my content when I was just getting started was really just throwing as much stuff out there as possible because I was a student, again, didn't really have a personal brand, didn't have an angle to really go at. All I really knew that I wanted to do was get a job or an internship in the finance world. And when you're coming from a
Mm.
school like UCF, again, we're not a target school. Go Knights, but we're not a Harvard, we're not a Yale, we're not a Stanford, right? So I needed to find a way to compete with these kids that would have these all-star resumes. And so for me, that was creating content. And so at the beginning, it was like talking about my student life. This one is about one of the interviews that I had with one of the big four accounting firms, which was really cool to see everything full circle because my journey at the beginning of my LinkedIn was like my goal is to get an interview with the big four, and I actually got it. And a lot of it was a lot of the interview was actually talking about not just the content I was creating on LinkedIn, but the podcast that I had at the time. And that was fascinating to me and a real unlock because it was like you go to school, everyone's like, got to get the 4.0, you got to get the you got to get the student clubs, the presidents, and all that stuff, right? And then I got this interview, and all they wanted to talk to me about was all the conversations that I had with these cool people on my podcast. And so that's what really started the content journey of like, oh my god, people are actually starting to pay attention to this. And again, this
Mm.
is 6 years ago in the career space. And so by the time I had graduated, I was like, okay, I need to share this knowledge that I'd learned of how students can really differentiate themselves to as many students as possible. And so that's where declassified came from there.
That's super cool. I want to read a comment from Alex. He says, I agree with Justin. Anytime you're doing your own work, you really need the mindset of everything will work out to keep going. Did you know you gave us a beautiful little soundbite like that, Justin?
Clip it. Let's put it on TikTok. You never know how many
Clip
views
it,
it's
babe.
gonna
Yo,
get.
look at this. Look at this guy. He's already creating short form content from his long form content on Adobe Live. Of course he is. Kane says, I wish my work was noticed. Still trying to hold on to that grit. Justin, any advice for people that might be feeling defeated? It is hard, right? I mean, I relate to the highs, but also the lows. I'm sure you do as well. Advice?
Look, I get it, right? Like my first podcast, the Get Your Grind Up podcast, which I kind of talk about in this post, we were getting like 10, 15, 20 views at the time. But if you talk to me, you would have thought that it was the best podcast in the world. And so you need to, you have to convince yourself. I think that's the first thing. But number two is I think what really helped me get through a few of the ruts that I was in was creating a community at the time of content creators around me who were at the same level slash slightly above me. And so the reason I talk about that is during COVID, I had three really good friends that helped. I pushed them and they also pushed me a ton. Whether it was I was in a rut or whether they were in a rut. And basically, we would jump on calls every week, every other week, go through our content, what was working, what wasn't working. And so, at least if my content was like doing really bad that week, I knew my friends were winning, but also I could learn from them. And I think that's the biggest thing that gets you through these sort of times of toughness or to keep that grit going or while like your views are down or people aren't seeing your stuff, whatever that may be, is motivating yourself to learn to get out of that rut. Because the thing that I see happen the most is a lot of these people um, have a lot of confidence, which is great, but they just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. But you just need to tweak things minorly every week, every other week, and then you'll start to see changes. Let's just say you're at 500 views, which is amazing because 500 people in a room is insane, right? Like Phil, you and I both have spoken to rooms with hundreds of people. Like it's crazy that we now think 500 views or whatever, maybe 100 views isn't a big thing when it is. But let's just say you wanted to get from 500 to 1,000, you tweak something in the intro, right? Maybe it drops to 350. You're like, okay, well, that didn't work, right? And then the next week you tweak something in the outro, and now you've jumped up to 1,000. And you're like, oh, there's something there. As long as you just keep tweaking things and trying things out, I think you'll ultimately find the solution from the content world. The issue is, I think a lot of people are just like, okay, I just need to post every single day or I need to post 5 times a day because that's what all these social media gurus tell you. But if you're not changing anything, nothing's typically ever going to happen. So that would be my advice to that person.
It's almost like, yeah, it's good advice. It's almost like we have to give ourselves permission to experiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the reasons content creators, which by the way is a term that pretty much includes everyone nowadays, your job could be anything, but in addition to whatever you do day to day, you're also now a content creator, right? But it's almost like,
Literally.
yeah, we have to give ourselves permission to experiment, but then deep down, we're nervous to do that for fear of failure, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I feel that.
Well, look, the thing is too, right? Like when you're talking about fear of failure, right? Let's just say you put out a post on social, it gets 0 views. That literally means no one saw it. No one's gonna make fun of you. You can private it, you can leave it there, right? I think that was one of my biggest things. I mean, even looking back and scrolling through these LinkedIn posts earlier, I was like, what was I doing? Why am I saying any of this stuff? Um, but it's like you have to experiment to get better at your craft. I grew up playing sports, and there's so many times where I grew up playing soccer where it's like you're trying to learn how to kick the ball the right way. If there's any soccer fans out there, like when Ronaldo first did his like knuckleball, that was what every single kid in the world wanted to try to learn how to do at the time for a free kick. And like you're sitting there and you watching all these YouTube videos of how these kids are doing it, but you can't do it because you're just trying to shoot it the same way every single time, but you're not tweaking anything. And that's, I think, where you learn how to iterate is whether it's in content creation, whether it's in your job, whatever it may be, you need to constantly be trying things, because that's how you stay relevant when things change all of a sudden. Because if you're not able to adapt, it's very hard to keep or stay relevant during all the time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you have, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I guess I kind of am putting you on the spot. You know, when someone says, I'm not going to put you on the spot, and then they put you on the spot, that's what I'm doing.
I love it.
So I would even love to just start to dive into examples. I know you have a few that are queued up, but even if this one isn't queued up, but just an example of what you just described in action. What was a small tweak that you were able to make to a piece of content where you started to see traction after the change was made?
For sure. So I'm just gonna pull up our TikTok really quick because you'll see all the tweaks that we've made throughout our time. Um,
Cool.
let's see. So and like you can even see it through like our thumbnail. So right now we're doing and TikTok, we're getting if anyone has a contact there, please let me know because we're getting hit with like random bans for some reason for like unoriginal QR code content, which is just a bot going through. But basically, if you look at our stuff, a lot of our stuff over the past, I want to say year or so was man on the street. And so you see a lot of this
Mhm.
man on the street. These are just privated videos, but a lot of man on the street stuff. What we saw started to work was SAT content because we just tried it. And then we started doing a lot of SAT stuff. So you'll start to see, I think the first SAT video might be this one, or this one is 38K. And then we hit a mill and we're like, okay, well, if something's working, let's just keep going at it. Right. And so we did another one, 30K, which is good, 19.5, 400K, 30K. And when you look back at like our average views, a lot of the ones that were, again, look at these private videos as well. Like the reason that they're privated is because the views didn't do great. But like the average view at that time was probably like 5, 10K for the most part. But then this SAT stuff started to work. And then we started seeing the views go up. And then again, the man on the street content started to die off a little bit. As again, you can see with the views being fully
Okay.
transparent with you all, right? And so we're like, okay, we need to innovate. We need to try this thing out. We tried the SAT stuff again, didn't work as great. So we're like, okay, let's try a completely new concept, which was accept it or reject it, which is like kind of playing on the red flag, green flag, which was really popping off on social at the time, and it did okay. But then we iterated on accept it, reject it, which the whole concept was like, would you accept this job or reject this job? And the concept did well, but we iterated on that to say, guess this job for a mystery gift. And the first post that we got was 100K. And we're like, okay, well, there's something here. Let's keep playing around with it. These posts, as you can see, Brian is our talent. He's got this like Men in Black, CIA kind of feel. He's not really talking. And so we've started to talk to a lot of people because we've seen the views kind of die down a little bit, but we really believe in the concept because it did pop off in this one. So we started talking to our friends. So back to that point of like having a community of people that you can go and ask questions to, started talking to our friends and they're like, okay, well, Brian doesn't have much personality in this. He's kind of doing that CIA, not really talking thing, only pointing. Let's have him start talking a little bit more. And so the videos that are in edit right now are him actually talking, him moving around a little bit more, and him having a little bit more personality. So we're gonna see
Hmm.
how those come out and do, but that's kind of how you can look at our iteration of everything that has sort of worked. And we scroll. I wonder if it'll load up fairly quickly or not. See
It's
if we can
super
get to
cool to
all of
take
them.
us on this little journey of like, here's what worked, here's what didn't work. It's public. You can see it didn't work.
Yep.
And I think it's
Okay.
refreshing for everyone, right, to see that, like, even an account of this size, you're still on the same journey we are, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Literally. Like if you're not experimenting, you're just never gonna stay up with the times. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
always have to constantly be trying something new. And so
Cool.
okay, so you can see this is all the way back to when I was the face of the page. So we're trying
Oh
like
my
meme.
gosh.
So I'm no longer like the face of the page. I more like try to be in the back end, more the CEO of the media company now. But like you can see this stuff. We're trying like meme content. We're trying scholarship stuff. I saw on a TikTok guru guy that said if you wear glasses, people think that you're smarter. So I started wearing glasses in some of my videos. So there's all these different sort of things, and then I tried the no face thing, which started to work a little bit. Um, as you can see, the content is constantly changing. And I I really ask you, for any of you that are content creators out there and you're looking for like inspiration, or again you're feeling down about your content, like go through whoever your favorite content creators are. I guarantee you, if you scroll all the way to the beginning, if they're honest with their stuff and they've kept their content out on there since their very beginning, their stuff has changed a ton, as you can
Yeah.
see with declassified stuff. um, and I want to see if I can find it really quick. But so again, you can see the thumbnails changing, right? And then our views start to plateau.
Hmm.
And we try this thing with Man on
It's
the
because you didn't
Street.
make
And
those thumbnails in Express. That's the problem.
If Express was around at the time, I would have been killing it on
I'm
Express. I'll
teasing
tell you
you.
that right away, because
Yeah.
these were not great thumbnails, as you can tell.
Wait, I was gonna
um,
say those were not made in Express, honey.
they were not.
I
They
love
were
it.
not. I wish we
I
had
love it.
Express, but
Did you find the post you're looking for?
yeah, I did. I did. So again, you can see the views kind of stagnate around 10K, 20K, 50K. But then we tried this with JC, who you've met, Phil, another
Yeah.
Orlando creator, who then became the face of Declassified. We tried our graduation Man on the Street series for the first ever time, and boom, first video 6.6 million, second video 5.4 million, and the third video 10.2 million. And we're like, okay, there's momentum. Let's go all in on that. And that's when you start to see the page completely change to just Man on the Street stuff. And so that's kind of, again, kind of a quick walkthrough of Declassified and
Yeah.
sort of the mindset of
I
everything.
love that you took us on that little journey and you were able to, how cool. I mean, someone already commented the number of videos. It's wild to see this much content. And I think, hearing from the beginning of this, your kind of mindset as an entrepreneur, it makes sense that you've been able to really stay laser focused on this and see it as a challenge. I feel like you taking us on that journey is the perfect tee up for a little demo moment if you're ready for that. We would love
Yeah.
to. I mean, we touched on editing for retention, and I think that you're going to be able to bring this concept to life with a demo. So that's me teeing you up.
Let's do
To
it.
maybe just
Let's do
start
it.
to explain what editing for retention is, and then maybe show us an example.
Actually, yes. So let me explain first. So when you're looking at like, this is our analytics. So this is the analytics of the video that had 6.6 million. So the key things that I want you to pay attention to is 33 seconds here, and then which is the average time watch. So the amount of time that people watch on the TikTok, and then 46.53 seconds, which is the total length of the TikTok. And so whether it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Shorts, any video platform, the thing that they care about the most is, do people watch all the way to the end? Right. And so as you can see with this one, we have 33 seconds. And if we want to compare that to if we compare that to this video that had 19 seconds, this one only had 200K views, right? And then if we look at the last example, it has 26 seconds and it has 100K views. So as you can see, it's gotten much harder over time on TikTok to get more views, because this is this 100K video is our most recent one with 26 seconds versus this one, which was posted on 12/7/2023, which had 19 seconds. And there's more views, total views
Mm-hmm.
on that one. So the reason that I'm bringing this up is the as small as a second matters in the grand scheme of things. When it comes to views, the difference between 19 seconds and 33 seconds of watch time, which is what, 14 seconds, could mean the difference between 100K views to millions, right? And so when you're editing for retention and you're thinking about all of this, you're what you're trying to do is make sure that the viewer gets all the way to the end. So we're just going to watch this through fully, and then I'll kind of break down sort of why we did certain things in certain ways. Does that sound good, Phil?
Love it. Love this plan.
Cool. All right. So here's just the video. I'll be quiet for a minute, 25 seconds, and then I'll walk you, or whatever questions you have, Phil, let me know, and then we can kind of walk through it. And if anyone that is watching has any questions, feel free to drop it as well.
Guess
I'll
the
keep an eye on the
job for
chat.
mystery gift. Ducks hate me. Huh. Is it a fisherman? Damn. Alaska is low-key elite for your job. It's not a fisherman. Sailor? No. Okay. Third hint. You don't mix well with water. Well. You don't mix well with water? What the hell? Ducks hate me. Alaska is low-key elite for your job. And you don't mix well with water. Oh, God. I don't even know. Oh, can I phone a friend? TJ.
Oil. Like someone that works in oil. The oil industry.
Yeah, but what is that called? What's someone that works in oil called?
Petroleum engineers.
But what does that have to do with ducks?
Well, oil's pretty shit for the water. And ducks.
Oh. Yeah, so what, like a petroleum engineer? Should I just say that? Or, yeah, all right, petroleum engineer. Yeah, let's go. Sit back down. Was it wrong? Oh, let's see what I won. Yo, let's go. We got a Chipotle gift card. Hell yeah. Appreciate it, bro. Appreciate it.
Chipotle, please accept this mission.
All right. So
I love it.
that's kind of like
I was guessing
the
all along.
did you get it, Phil?
I thought it was oil, but then I forgot that it was an actual job. So, yeah.
Um, so yeah, so that's our concept around guess the job for a mystery gift. And so if you're looking at kind of like the first sort of segment of it,
Guess the job.
within the first half a second, we go from normal frame
Guess the
to a
job.
quick jump in. And again, the reason for that is when you're scrolling on your TikTok feed or your Instagram feed, whatever it may be, you're looking for something to stop your attention. And when we're doing something that's like a game show and people are kind of static, we can't have really people jumping around or anything like that. So we're moving the screen itself to kind of mimic, again, something jumping or something moving around, so it captures your attention. So that's the first thing that we did. Again, this is at 21, right?
For a mystery gift.
Then he opens it up.
Ducks hate me.
So this is what we noticed with our first video. Was in the first video that did 100K views, we're trying to figure out what was the difference between that one and the other 9 that we posted from the initial shoot. And what we looked at was one of the big differences in the intro was the first question was very like thought provoking. And so that one was, your job what used to be an Olympic sport. And so everybody was guessing like professional basketball player or wrestler or something like that, but it actually became architect. And so people were like, wait, like that's a weird fact. Like no one would think that. And so when we were thinking about this and petroleum engineer, we're like, okay, well, what goes with petroleum engineer that people might not correlate at the very beginning, but also strikes like a nerve in some people, whether it's a controversial thing or or something that is emotional or whatever that may be. And so for us, that was like, ducks hate you. Because then people are like, what? Like, why would a duck hate you? Right? Ducks love everything for the most part, right? And so that is why we put that question first off. And then let me see if I can
Is it a
find
fisherman?
Phil. How's that sound so far?
Sounds great. Yeah, sounds
Cool.
great. Sounds great. I love
Okay.
it. I love these quick little things. I think people get overwhelmed with all the things on an iPhone. I think that's the main thing.
That we can make this iPhone footage look as great as possible. And honestly, as long as you have good lighting, like you can make anything look great. So I want to have this as a really interesting point because I never thought about it until one of my friends, Brady, which I think you met as well, right, Phil?
Hmm.
So he started telling me he was watching some of our older videos and he was like, dude, your character's eye lines are always messed up. It's annoying me. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like Phil, do you
Yeah, what
know
does that
what?
even mean? I don't know what that means.
So if you look at Brian's eyes, I think you guys can see my mouse on the screen, right? So if you guys see his eyes right here, I want you to keep an eye on his eyes, and then when we zoom in, his eyes are the same level, right? And so this makes it less of a headache than, let's just say, see if I can edit this really quick. Hold up. So
So you're
let's
in Premiere, by
just,
the way.
yes, I am Premiere. Let's just say we move this down uh like let's just say we moved him down here.
Mm,
Like just because you do that, even though it's the same
yeah.
action of zooming in, it messes up. Like there's just something to do with like psychology that really messes up why is his head moving, and it causes a disturbance that a lot of people, according to my friend who has a ton of data behind it, will just end up leaving the video because it like pisses them off that it's edited that way. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, it's not something that we thought of at the very beginning, but now we try to make sure that it's as consistent as possible in our videos. And when you look at um, a lot of the top creators as well, whether we're talking Mr. Beast or anything like that, you'll notice it as well. When they start zooming in on characters, they try to keep the eye level the same.
Yeah, that I would have never thought about that. And now that you say it, it's gonna be the thing I notice every single time I'm scrolling. And it might even be the
Sorry.
things I'm scrolling off, right? I'm like, oh, that's annoying. I didn't know
Yeah.
why. Now, thanks to you, I know why.
Now, I'll say this too, like editing for retention is kind of like a blessing and a curse, right? Because now you'll start to notice all these things in other people's content and you're like, oh, I see. I think I know why he did that or she did that, or they edited it this way or they edited that way. So those are all little things here and there um, that we think about from our team when it comes to editing these videos.
Damn.
And so also, we are now 8 seconds in. We've already got one zoom in,
That's the
right?
job for mystery gift.
Another zoom in. So two zoom
Ducks
ins.
hate me. Huh. Is it a fisherman?
He's got a guess. So that's a fourth thing. We've zoomed in again. That's number 5.
Damn.
We've got music in the background. That's 6. Another zoom
Alaska.
in is 7. Right. So that's 7 things that are going on already in the first 10 seconds. And all of that is to really capture your attention so that hopefully you're staying till the end. Some people call this ADHD editing, which, again, whether you agree with that term or not, that's how we kind of want to play to the sort of TikTok algorithm and what the younger demographic is wanting with their content. So if you start paying attention again to a lot of the bigger creators in the space, they will have cuts more than what we have in here, because a lot of the feedback that we've gotten even in our videos is we need to have more sound effects or more cuts. Even though we've got already 7+ things in the first 10 seconds, which is just crazy to think about.
It is. It really is. Do you have this planned before you shoot the content, or are some of these things that you encounter while you're doing it?
So when we go out there and shoot the content, all we have planned are the questions that we're going to ask, like the answers and the prizes. We're not necessarily thinking about the edits per se. The only thing that we are really thinking about is the framing of like the first 3 seconds. And the reason that we're thinking of the framing for the first 3 seconds is because that's essentially your thumbnail for your video, right? So the same way, right, Phil, you think about your thumbnail and your title for
Yeah.
YouTube, we look at the first 3 seconds as our thumbnail for TikTok or any short form, really. So those first 3 seconds, if you can't understand what the story is within this initial frame, then it's very tough that the person's probably going to stay all the way to the end. And so again, that was another piece of our feedback, which we've actually gotten rid of this job board for future videos, um, or this whiteboard, because you can see like the light reflecting off of it, and it's kind of annoying. You can't really see guess the job until we zoom in. And so that's, again, small things that we're always thinking about and iterating for like the next video and the next video and the next video.
That's very cool. What what kinds of content inspire you, either in your industry or not? Like, are there things that you notice and save, or where do you get your inspiration?
Yeah, so this concept came from a guy named James So. So he's like the original dollar or mystery gift. So he goes around, and like he will go and ask someone, do you want a dollar or this mystery gift? Sometimes a mystery gift is like an iPhone or headphones or whatever. Sometimes it's like a head of lettuce or something, right? So you just never know. And so that was his original concept. And we saw those videos and we're like, oh, that's really interesting. He's doing some stuff around college campuses, but it's not really career focused. And so we took that, we spun it a little bit, and we turned it into guess a job for a mystery gift. And we're continuing to iterate on it. So it's not fully like just copying James So's stuff, which I would never recommend just straight up copying someone, but looking at it for inspiration, right? And like taking little bits and pieces of everything. That's what we try to do for the declassified content. When it comes to other creators that I'm paying attention to, people that I really like are Mr. Beast, obviously, just from like an editing standpoint. But Ryan Trahan is a big one right now. And in terms of educational content, I look at My First Million, if you're familiar with My First Million. And the reason that I like My First Million is because they've been able to take a very stuffy concept of business, so to say, and be able to speak about it and talk about it in a more casual way that I think even my non-business friends could pay attention to and be completely okay with learning about it. And that's the way that we view our content at Declassified, because, right, if we're talking like your career advisor at your school, chances are you're going to fall asleep and you're just never going to watch our content ever again. We need to be able to speak like you to you. And we basically have like this kind of bait and switch around how can we create engaging content that also educates you about your career or your life. And so with this video, you might be saying like, oh, well, Justin, like what does guessing a job have to do with like actually educating people? It's just kind of a game show. And on the surface, sure, you can say that, but also on the back end, you might not even know some of the jobs that we're going to be talking about on this show, and that might spark an interest for you that you might end up going down, changing your major, going to a school that is specific for that, whatever that may be. So the whole point of this and point of Declassified, we know that we're not going to be able to teach you the nitty gritty stuff because that stuff likely won't get a ton of views and we would have to pay or have you pay for that. What we do at Declassified is we just want to inspire you and motivate you to go out there and learn about things that you may not even have known about. And so me growing up in Connecticut, like I never known that a petroleum engineer was a thing, because up north there really isn't, like oil is not a big industry in Connecticut, right? But in Houston, where Brian's from at U of H, like being a petroleum engineer, like a lot of kids go to school specifically for that because again, Texas, you got oil all over the place here, right? So that's our goal with this. Is just to motivate people and inspire them to go and find more potential careers out there.
It's a good point. Even just as a driver, as a motivator for content creation, I always say you need to be selfish in that you need to create something that's beneficial for you. The act of creating it is beneficial for you. You get something out of it. You learn. For
Mm-hmm.
me, when I pick a title on a video, I don't always know what the answer is, but the fact is I have to create it with a deadline, and that's how I learn. It's almost like a modern day textbook for me, because Lord knows I didn't read any of those textbooks in college. It's like an expensive, decoration. It's like flip through right before a test. But yeah, isn't it cool though that now we're like everyone's creating content. In many cases, that's how we're learning about things. Even just the act of creating it, you're learning still about the content that you're creating. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's fascinating where like me and some of my friends, when we'll talk about, oh, we want to learn something new, it's okay. If you want to learn something new when you're outside of school, it's like, how do you actually do that? It's very
Yeah.
hard, right? Like even if you like if you're at a job like a 9 to 5 and you're, let's just say you're a software engineer or something, right? And TikTok's starting to pop off and you're like, I really want to learn marketing. Like your job's never going to teach you that, right? Because there's nothing there. You don't have school to really teach you that unless you go back and get an MBA or something. Um, it's very hard to learn when like have structured learning. And for
Yeah.
me, at least, the way that I try to learn things is how do I combine content with that? So let's just say I wanted to learn about like supply chain or something. It's, can we use declassified content to launch a merch store and then I can learn about supply chain that way because it's kind of like a side project type of thing. Or if
Hmm.
I want to learn script writing, right, or like copywriting, then it's like, okay, well, maybe writing questions isn't necessarily script writing, but what if we wanted to create more long form content or more educational stuff? Or maybe we spin off another page called like declassified coursework or something, and it's like very in depth guides around finding a job or whatever it may be. That's a project that I'll learn about copywriting. And so for me, it's always how do I combine content if I want to learn something. For other people, it might be something else, but I do think everyone needs to figure out like their version of learning once you get out of school because it's really hard to get that structure again.
Yeah, I'm thinking about I'm in London right now. That's why I'm not in my normal fancy setup with a fancy background. I'm sitting in my friend's studio in London, a few steps away from where lots of people are gathered for Max tomorrow. But think about that. Many of us have flown from very far away to be together in real life. Why? To learn, because we all get together. Of course, this could be done online, but there's still some magic about getting together in real life and learning. That's one form of adult learning, is getting together in real life. And yeah, it's funny. As you get older, it becomes harder to have those learning opportunities. I'm going to ask you about what I asked you about a few weeks ago before we even knew we were doing this. And that was, Justin, what kinds of content work right now? So when we talk about TikTok, we talk about Instagram Reels and all of these things. You are living and breathing this stuff every day. So I got the answer a few weeks ago, but now our our viewers and our friends in the chat get a good answer too. What kinds of content or what strategies work right now?
Are I mean, are we coming from the lens of like we're a beginning creator and we're trying to figure it
Sure.
out, like, or are we coming from like a seasoned sort of perspective?
I'll probably want you to answer both.
All
Let's say
right,
let's say
so
beginner to start.
if I'm a beginner, right? Like I haven't really figured out what I want to do or what type of content I kind of want out there. What I would do is I would do research around like pick 3 topics that you really are interested in. Maybe that's personal finance, maybe that's marketing, maybe that's editing because you love Adobe, right? And Adobe Premiere and stuff like that, right? So maybe those are your 3 your three niches that you want to do research on. Then I would go really hard to try and figure out who are the top creators or who are getting top videos in the space that don't have millions of followers, right? So don't pay attention to follower count, just pay attention to views. And what I would try to find is like, who is the creator that has 50K subs on YouTube that is getting 200,000 views on average, right? Who's the 100K sub person that's getting 500K views on average? Because those are the people that, what that typically means is their content is popping off immediately, and YouTube is deeming that content as super important and is going to push it out in the algorithm. So it's like, okay, once you figure that out, once you see what content is working in sort of your niche in your space, because again, every niche is a little bit different and every creator is a little bit different. If I try to create the content that Phil creates, I probably wouldn't get as many views the same way that vice versa, right? But find the niches, see what content is working, and then from there, throw as much stuff against the wall. Because if you don't know what type of content that you're good at, you're not going to figure it out until you actually try it. And the best sort of analogy that I always give anyone in this space is when you were young, Phil, right? Did you eat
Well, it was a while
vegetables?
ago.
Don't say that.
Yes, I love vegetables.
But did you love them as a kid?
Yeah, I did. I
Okay,
did,
well,
but
you're
not
you're
all of them.
ruining the analogy, but
Fine, I hated them,
most
Justin. I hated vegetables as a kid.
most people don't like vegetables as kids, right? Also, you didn't grow up in the US. US
I
school
did not.
lunches with vegetables is terrible. Side
Mm.
note, by the way. But most kids don't like vegetables, and they're just like, ill gross green beans or ill gross broccoli, right? They just will never try it. And then usually as you get older, you learn how to cook it yourself, or you find a friend that really knows how to cook and you'll try it. And you're like, oh wait, like broccoli and green beans and cauliflower, it's actually pretty good, pretty decent. I actually like it now. And the only reason that you like vegetables, if you do like vegetables, is because you tried it and you're willing to try it. And that's the same thing with content. You need to figure out and you need to try things until you figure out what works for you. And so that's my advice to sort of the beginning creator. Now, let's just say you're a seasoned creator and you're like, Justin, well, I have this thing that's kind of working, but how do I get better? Right? How do I make it better? And what I would tell you is I would look at your content, and this is what a good friend of mine, Andrew, who works at YouTube, told us, um, which he works with a lot of large creators at YouTube, and we're talking like 5 million, 10 million plus. And he said what a lot of the top creators do is they're always experimenting in three different buckets. So you've got your main bucket, which is kind of like your viral stuff, right? The stuff that's always going to do well. Then you want sort of something that builds relationship with your community, right? These can be Q&As, these can be anything like that allows you to build more of a parasocial relationship with your followers and your viewers. And most creators can usually do number one. Some do number two, but the best do one, two, and three. And the third one is probably like, let's just say you're posting 7 times a week because you're crazy and you're posting every single day. One piece of content every single week should be something slightly different to see if your content should start to switch. Now, that could be different in terms of the content style. So let's just say maybe you are a talking head type of persona and like a demo persona, like kind of what Phil does. And then maybe just he wants to try out doing man on the street, right, Phil? Maybe we'll get you on Park Ave and just start talking to some people, see if they
I
like
mean, you
using
hand me a
Adobe.
microphone, you know I'm going to be fine on my own.
Right? But maybe that does well, maybe it doesn't, right? Let's just say it pops off and it does 200,000 views. Now there's a conversation to be had where it's like, okay, well, Phil, should we just keep going? Like, should we try some more of this man on the street content? Or maybe you put it out and it gets like 1,000 views and you're like, okay, well, maybe not. Like, that's fine. No one saw it, right? let's move on to the next thing. And then the next week, maybe out of the 7 posts, you try one that's like an adventure or a challenge style video where it's like, I challenged myself to use all of Adobe products for one project that I did with Justin Nguyen or something. It's just like a documentation of how me and you started going through all of Adobe's products and creating a project for it, right? And maybe that does super well, right? And you're like, okay, well, maybe challenge videos are what I need to do next. Um, but I think a lot of people, they only do number one because that's what's working, and that's great. You always want to go 100% into what's working for you, but you always want to be trying something slightly just in case the algorithm switches up on you or your audience switches up on you. You need to make sure that you're able to pivot just in case that time comes where you need to.
You planted the seed, Justin. Wade said, Phil's next Adobe Live has to be man on the street.
There we go. Let's
Oh
do it.
gosh, that's taking me back to broadcast journalism school days, which is, as I mentioned, a very long time ago. But we used to have to do man on the street for some of our classes. In our final few minutes that we have, I would love to get some understanding. We've talked a lot about declassified media, but I also want you to talk about Always Be Creating and some of the other communities that you have that include the one that I'm a part of in Orlando. So give us a little overview, a little lay of the land of all the projects you have.
For sure. Yeah. So let me see. So this working with Adobe actually started all from this one photo. I'm not sure if you guys can see my screen just yet, but can you guys see? Okay, there you
Working
go.
on it. There we are. Yeah.
There we go. So as you can see, this lovely lady right here, beautiful Teresa. She's what started this whole Adobe relationship. But this is a meetup of our community called Always Be Creating, which Jerry's right here. Jerry Wan and I where this meetup was right when COVID was like finally, or not like ending, but like it was getting a little bit more back to normal to meet up in person. And so we decided to host an Asian creator meetup in New York. And so we've got some big creators, right? We've got Vivian Tu, Your Rich BFF, if you're familiar with her.
Love her.
Tejas Haller here.
Love him. Met him at Max,
Katrina.
actually.
Yep. Tejas is great. Katrina, a lovely express evangelist. Berna, and then Erica Kohlberg, if you're familiar with like her like lawyer-esque videos of like, I read the fine print so you don't have to,
Yeah,
type of
she's
stuff.
huge.
Yeah. So this was like an amazing meetup with both platforms, creators, and like Asian entrepreneurs. And so we reached out to Teresa to see if like Adobe wanted to kind of work with us on this. And Express was just launching at the time. And so we got to get the Express in front of all these creators. It was a great event, great dinner, and great time. And basically, we created Always Be Creating to really create a place where Asian content creators can like come and meet and talk about the different like wins that we have, as well as like challenges that we're all going through at the time. So this has been amazing to really build us out with Jerry. We've got some fun things that we're working on this summer that I can't say just yet, but it's going to be pretty crazy if we're able to pull it off this summer. And then what Phil is a part of, but he is not in this photo, is Unwind in Orlando, which is like Orlando, or what we created is Orlando's content creators. So this was at Orlando City, which they brought us out to the game, and we were able to like go onto the field, create some content for Orlando City, get to watch the game. It was really cool. We got to actually like hold the flag like during like the national anthem, which is pretty dope. Never been able to do that before, but we've got like our good friend Tony, the paint guy.
He's awesome.
Tony's great. Brady, who I was talking about earlier, he creates like tutor content. Xander, who creates like a lot of editing content. And then now he's doing like TikTok shop stuff, which is cool. Joe Therapy creates physical therapy stuff. You
He's
can
my
create
neighbor.
content. Oh, really? Is he really?
Yeah, he is my neighbor. We live on the same street. But
Love.
what you're about to say, I think, is that like what's so key in this is bringing all people together because we're constantly learning in this stuff that's always changing. You've done
Yes.
such an amazing job of creating community everywhere you go. And it has certainly been special. I know you hate it, but to put the spotlight on you, you're so quick to put the spotlight on everyone else. And so payback,
Thank
buddy.
you.
It's been
Thank
such a
you.
pleasure. And also thanks for taking us into your process. I know our friends in the chat really appreciate getting in the trenches on that. And keep it up. Keep it up, my friend. Wherever you are, wherever you're building community, you'll find me there as well, because I just appreciate your company and your insights, your intelligence. And thanks for letting us do a little spotlight on you. You're a superstar.
No, I appreciate you, Phil. I couldn't have asked for a better host. You asked the best questions at the right time. And you're part of all the communities that I ever create. So you're
You know
always
it.
welcome, and I appreciate you.
We appreciate you. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us and stick around for more great content. See you soon, Justin.
See ya.